the 11th of May today. It's a Monday, and I'm continuing the awakening letters. These are varieties of spiritual experiences in the life after death. This was channeled through by a lady, Cynthia. She worked with Rosamond Lehman. Their daughters, Sally and Patricia, died very young and in tragic circumstances, and they are sending messages from the afterlife. They came through the pen of Lady Sandys, and they worked on this for 30 years. This was published in 1979, and this here is from Joe, who is Cynthia's brother, and I'm in part 5 of this book. This was another looking back letter when Joe saw himself again with Douglas, his only son in his last life, who was killed in France in 1944. My life in France in the Middle Ages seems to have begun in the north, where war and famine and misery and a general chaotic state prevailed. It was also disorganized that in course of time I seemed to drift south. I remember my meeting with Douglas. I was alone and very thirsty. My men had gone off to their homes to plough the land to try to raise food for their families. I was drifting. Douglas passed me, and we looked at each other. I can see him now in the neat, simple robe of a clerk, while I was dirty and in rags. Something urged him to invite me into his house for food and wine. I accepted readily, and we went together to a small mud and stone house. Very simple, just what an artist would need. This is part of the monastery, he explained as he offered me bread and wine. That was the beginning of one of the happiest periods of all my memories. I'm going to try and track the monastery. It was among olive groves and within sight of the sea. Douglas was living on the artistic plane, where music, painting and prayer were all woven inextricably together. It was, in a sense, a very perfect life of utter simplicity. I can't remember any household chores. We ate and slept when we were hungry or needed food. Food of some sort was available: fruit, bread, wine. I think that was all we had, probably mostly from the monastery, but it was all very primitive and must have been a very small settlement. Douglas seemed hardly to belong to this world, and I don't know how or when he passed over, but there appeared to be very little difference in our lives. He was there, working as before. The music was there, the painting continued, our conversations were uninterrupted. The only thing I noticed was that he had ceased to eat and seemed not to need food or wine. I thought this odd and unnatural, but he assured me that many of the brothers were like him now, and found they needed very little rest and no food. So I accepted his queer ways, since he had always been an eccentric to my way of thinking. Then I began to notice a certain radiance around him. He was always lightly made, or rather spare of form, not heavy, like me. One evening I came home in from the night when it was quite dark, and found him painting with a light issuing entirely from his own body. I can see it so plainly, and my consternation. "Douglas, what are you doing? And where's this light coming from?" "Me," he said quite simply. "Don't you understand? I've let go my physical body, and I'm using the next one." "But where is your old body, your flesh and blood?" "It's not here any longer. It's gone into the ether. The brother showed me how to do this. I'm just the same now, only I work better, and my work has lasting quality." "But then you are dead," I said in astonishment. Whereupon he roared with laughter. "Not dead at all, but very much more alive than I ever was. quite wonderful. I feel so strong and untiring. I can do things now. I carried a painting into the infirmary today and put it beside a dying man. He shot up on his bed as he saw the shining one and fell back as happy as a child to pass over without fear. I'm hearing all kinds of things and seeing. I'll tell you more gradually each day, but go and get your meal now and rest. Don't worry about me. I'm stronger than both of us put together. I had a long drink of wine after that to steady my nerves, to try to think out what he meant. I've run out of power, but you see, this old life is very important to me. I must remember it and see how vital Douglas has been to me in life after life. I do not know how long he was able to continue in this state. It depends on the desire. With Douglas it continued until I was ready to pass on. We lived together, so far as I can remember, in the same way. Douglas doing more painting and music and spending longer intervals in the infirmary to heal and teach. And then, when I became ill and I knew my strength was ebbing away, Douglas came and told me he was going to help me to leave the physical aching body and reassume for a time the same body as he was using. I fell into a coma and woke to find myself outside my body, which was lying most awkwardly across a rough bed. Douglas was there. He did not attempt to move or straighten the corpse. He just stood, and I knew he was deep in prayer, asking the great powers of earth to receive my old body. Then, turning to me, he said, "Come outside, you must need air and sunshine." And we moved into the little olive garden outside. I breathed deeply the most wonderful air. Something entered into me with that breathing and gave me another sense. When we returned to the hut, my old body vanished, and Douglas was saying, "We shall not see it again. The earth is ours and all that is in it." And so I began my astral, semi-physical life for a short time with Douglas. But I was not far enough advanced by a long chalk, and so after a period, I don't know how long, I lost touch with my astral and became etheric, leaving Douglas to continue his work among the poor and suffering, painting and writing music and remaining between the planes, while I, in my unevolved etheric, float back into the usual stream of life and rest after physical death. In other words, I cease to be useful on the semi-physical plane. I'm told there are many advanced souls who are enabled to do this, particularly in times of stress. I'm reading another letter. Journey into the earth. Now, to go back to our journey into the earth. We reached this center, and at least I suppose we did, and having exhausted our power to accept new vibrations, we turned for the surface, coming back slowly, endeavoring to see all we could. The earth has a very thick crust, which is very off-putting on first acquaintance, and Mary found it suffocating. It feels like passing through thick pea soup, but it doesn't last. The earth has enormous caverns, lighted by a different kind of light from anything I've seen before on the surface or in space. This is due, I'm told, to a mixture of sun and moon rays passing through the soil. I can't describe it. It's quite unearthly, as we used to say, but most beautiful and ringing with music. I asked Andrew what the sound meant, and he said, "They are calling into life the new seeds and buds that will later grow and flourish on the surface." I couldn't see the roof of the cavern that we passed through. It was immense. When I looked up, I saw only a haze of light. There were beings everywhere, large and small nature spirits and divas, and another line altogether living in clusters among fairy-like gossamer webs, hanging and swaying with no apparent effort. Sorry. And with no support. But gravitation works quite differently here, and in any case we do not seem to notice it, but we do feel an impelling attraction towards the center, and I was sad to turn away. Flo, as my usual, the practical Flo, said, "We've learned all we can on this venture. Let's go back to our thinking places and sort out what we have gained." Our thinking places are wherever we made our etheric base. Mine, like Douglas's, is within a hail of Scaraba and Corrycrekan. The earth covers had a cousinly feeling to those below the whirlpool and Iona, where we met the old monks on the promontory. This was all on the same set of vibrations. I dallied and let Flo slip off home, while R and I followed slowly. She had never penetrated into so many different types of rib, and her power of acceptance is growing rapidly. I must find out about this music, Joe. So off she went into the upper reaches of the cavern, following the strains and asking for guidance. She came back radiant with excitement, saying, "Oh, Joe, I've met some of the old masters. They are trying out new sounds and learning how they were able to produce the music which came to them on Earth. It's all founded and grounded here, if anything is grounded." She asked, "But they tell me nothing really originated from here. It came upon some type of wireless ray which carries sound inspiration from sun to star. So it all comes from the sun, or suns, and we don't really know where any of our musical recordings come from. And they are all recordings. She went on to tell me that Bach was here, and Mozart, and many others, that is, a part of them, or one of their auxiliary bodies. At this point I urged her to come home, telling her that I couldn't carry any more new ideas, and so we left the great cavern and entered the pea-soup crust, and came back to the daylight that we knew and loved. Okay, so I finish this here, make this short.